go through everything. So feel free to ask any questions if you have any.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna start by reviewing the first the assignment and then the discussion, and then I was gonna go into the topic, which we'll have. I'll just talk about my career with that. So I'm looking at my other screen. That's what I'm looking at. So we're gonna start with week 4 assignment, which is the personal one-day meal plan for advanced CKD or chronic kidney disease. And this is a pretty advanced assignment, I believe, because you're not just looking at one nutrient. You're not looking at food groups, right? Like last week, or 2 weeks ago, I got you guys thinking about food groups. But now we're going really into the micronutrients and one of the macronutrients. So, and starting to juggle some of the nutrients, right? Like if you start going over on one thing, you have to look at the other. So it's a little bit more of a juggle with this meal plan. So a couple of things, I'm going to just read the assignment and then we're going to take it step by step. So develop a one-day menu based on the menu created during week 1 for an individual that has advanced chronic kidney disease. So the idea is try to use the menu you created already, but it's not necessary. I mean, I want to just say that to everybody because it could really change. A lot of the menus were probably very high in potassium, not necessarily very high in sodium, but they could drastically change. So you could use, for anyone, you can use it as a skeleton, but you don't have to. But important, you're looking at protein, sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and calcium. So you're looking at 5 nutrients. And the article really gives an in-depth explanation of why, right? Because you guys are coming at this fairly new. So it gives you that baseline. I also sent some further reading to help assist with this menu plan. So it's just a one day. Again, ideally we're looking at 3 meals, 1 snack, and you want to really stay with the recommendations. So the recommendations are outlined in the article. What is recommended is that you go to USDA's Food Data Central. I'm going to show that here, but we're also going to look at something else as well, because I think there's some other tools that are, I believe, are a little bit better. Okay, so that's the assignment. I am going to share my screen and show you. I'm talking to you, Jessica, as if there's multiple screen too. Okay, so this is, let me go. Okay, so we've got the article, right? This gives you a really good background of why people with CKD or end-stage renal disease have issues and why they have to watch their specific nutrients. It's really, really very in-depth article, and then explains the different nutrients and values. Okay, so you'll come to the values on your own. Now, one thing to know as you start building your menus, you're going to do a summary, but what really important to start doing as somebody that's in a graduate degree program in nutrition is to start building menus in spreadsheets. So that means, you have a calcium column, a potassium column, protein column, and so you're outlining everything as such. So I am going to move over to an example. Here is an example. Again, on the left, it's a little bit of a summary. And then, we've got breakfast, lunch, dinner. There's a little bit of a snack. And each of these columns is indicating the values for each and then identifying the totals on the bottom. So again, the protein, sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and calcium. So you can do it actually pulled this. This was somebody from last semester. I pulled this out of a PDF. So she actually built it in an Excel spreadsheet. So you can, link that Excel spreadsheet or copy and paste it. But having those columns and doing it in this format as opposed to just kind of writing it out is really key, and helps everyone practice building menus. So that's something I'll be looking for in this assignment. Move on to the assignment suggests. So I'm going between links. So Jessica, let me know if it doesn't keep up. Sometimes when I share Zoom, it doesn't keep up. So I'll pause. The assignment suggests that you use USDA Food Data Central. USDA Food Data Central is, you'll see I have it bookmarked. It's a very great tool, especially for whole foods, but in the past few years, they've added branded food. So a brand can actually add in their information. But the challenge is, if you wanted to do red pepper, look up what the full nutrient profile of red pepper is. You actually, the search results are coming. Okay, so there's SR Legacy Foods, there's Survey Foods, and Branded Foods, which is over 20,000. So again, if you go to Branded Foods, that could be hummus, it's red pepper jam, red pepper hummus, red pepper anything, red pepper olives. So generally, if you go to the legacy foods, they're the whole food category. So you've got a sweet red pepper raw, or a hot chili pepper, cayenne pepper, spice, and so forth. So there's a lot less to kind of sort through, and it's a lot less overwhelming. So if you just go to red pepper, and if it's gonna, you're gonna note the serving size, you want to put a tablespoon into a dish, or have a half a cup or something like that. You choose that, and then it'll show you the full nutrients. So the goal is to become familiar with this website. Like I said, I use it all the time. I'm constantly looking at foods. And it's probably the most comprehensive database for foods. I've been using this for most of my career. But I will tell you a little trick. You can use Chronometer. It's chronometer.com. And for those of you that can't see it, I will be sending a full description of everything. That I'll write stuff up, and I'll include the link. Am I going to be able to remember what my login is? Aha. Yay. So it's free. You can sign up, and it's free. And I will give you a little tip. You'll be using Chronometer later on in this program, so it's good to get used to it now. It's also just a great tool. It's very comprehensive. Maybe some of you are familiar with my FitnessPal. Is a popular one. Spark People is a popular one, but this is very comprehensive. My FitnessPal will give you like sodium and fiber and the macronutrients. Chronometer gives you everything because it pulls from the USDA. So it's really comprehensive. And so you can actually build your menu right in here. You will need to still drop it into a spreadsheet. I don't want to just have a screenshot, but this will help you play around with some food. So we go to add food. Let's do red pepper again. So red pepper raw. Let's say we're going to do, let me add, see, it just is one strip. So we're going to have to do, let's say we're going to do 1/2 cup sliced. Add that. Okay, so we added that food. I'm going to add some hummus. Let's say they do have the brands. So there's a ton of brands in here. I'm such a Wegmans girl. So are you, Jessica, I'm guessing.
Yep.
We're gonna put 2 tablespoons, add that in there. Okay. So it starts building out. You can see the protein, the fat, and you go down and look at all those nutrients. So you can start seeing, okay, where am I at with potassium? Where am I at with calcium? Where am I at with phosphorus? So we're going to add a cup of milk. So I'm going to go after some high, let's say 1% low fat milk, 1 cup, add that. And we can start seeing those nutrients go up. Okay, with 30% calcium. And this is based on my profile. So you can build a profile for this person. So you can, make the calcium specific for that person, or you could just keep an eye on the total milligrams. Where's the potassium again? There we go, 463 milligrams already. And, for this day, and that's only a couple of, where we have 3 foods. So this is what I like. Hi, Christina. This is what I like about this website. And again, it's free, and you can do a premium for, I don't know, it's like $5, $10 a month. Or it's called Chronometer Gold, and it starts helping you with menu planning and everything, but you don't need that. It's a free tool. And I will tell you that this is a great tool to orient yourself to. And then you just build this in. And then once you are ready, you've kind of played around, you feel good about your meals, and you can transfer it over into the spreadsheet and transfer the specific nutrients that you're looking at. Christina, we are reviewing the assignment for chronic kidney disease menu planning. And what I'm suggesting is that I reviewed the USDA Food Data Central, and then there's also Chronometer that you guys can use. Okay. So one more note, and I actually sent this information, or I sent you a link to another article that is completely separate from the assignment. It's not in the assignment, but it's something that I believe, as future dietitians, is something to start thinking about very early on. I'm gonna stop sharing. And what that is really about thinking about what foods are important for a person with chronic kidney disease. Like, of course we can build a very simple and plain menu and have it fit the calcium and the phosphorus and the potassium. But it's good to also consider quality of life for people. If they're having such a restricted diet, food becomes the central focus, because they have so many nutrients to keep an eye on. And if they're let's say they're in dialysis, which means they go to a dialysis unit 3 times a week. They sit in that dialysis unit for about 4 hours at each one of those days. They have a dietitian visiting them each one of those days, talking to them about their diet. There's a lot of focus on food, and you want to make the food satisfying. You want to include color, fat. That fat is important because it's got some mouthfeel. It helps feel a little bit like more exciting. A lot of people start focusing on nutrients and for some reason just naturally exclude fat. Emphasizing high fiber foods that are appealing. Cooked vegetables, canned fruits are okay. Frozen vegetables are okay. We want to be able to include fruits and vegetables, even though they might be high in potassium. Like when you go into Chronometer and you see an apple, go over your potassium levels, then consider giving applesauce in just a smaller amount, or a half an apple. Like, think about including things that are going to really increase that acceptability. And totally any fruit is better than no fruit. So that's really important to note. Fat is key. You can offer a variety of foods. Again, and this would happen oftentimes. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about this shortly about my career, but I worked a lot. I was a food allergy specialist. I worked with a ton of people on food allergies, and when I worked in residential dining on the Cornell University campus, these chefs would be like, oh my gosh, I absolutely can make a gluten-free, dairy-free meal. I'm just using that as an example, and it would come out all white. There was no fat, there were no sauces, there was no flavor. I mean, you can include flavor and sauces and condiments, but you just have to be careful. I mean, sodium is tricky. So think outside the box a little bit. Add color. Use herbs and spices. Make it colorful. A CKD patient may be able to use lower sodium versions of barbecue sauce and ketchup. So don't completely exclude it. And then finally, as a final thought, is visualize that meal after you've created it, because all of a sudden you can say, oh, you know what, I need some color. I'm going to switch from, I don't know, cauliflower to broccoli, something like that. So add that color in. So really, that article talks a little bit more about the quality of life for people and considering that as a component to overall menu planning, because sometimes when it comes down to it, offering people what they want or giving a little bit on some nutrients is more important than adhering to the steadfast. So if I'm going to be looking at your nutrients, obviously, but I'm also looking big picture of like, did you think about the whole day, and are you considering the patient or the person? All right, so that's the assignment. Any questions about that? Yeah, go for it, Christina.
Yeah, so we have to create that based on our first 1 day menu, right? Based on that.
Yeah, what I mentioned to Jessica earlier is I'm not going to go back and compare.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more important to consider the nutrients. We've got 5 nutrients to consider, so focus more on that. And my guess is, even if you use that as a base, which you can, it's going to shift, because you're going to have to shift the amount of potassium and sodium anyway.
Mm-hmm. What about the animal protein? Should we just avoid it at all, or we can have some? How is it? Because it's better, like plant-based, right? But it says you can like have a little bit of animal based. So how we do that? Should we just take it?
Well, I when it comes to animal versus plants, there are things to consider, right? I mean, plant-based proteins are not necessarily better if they're processed. Animal-based proteins might be better if they're unprocessed. So, is it processed? Is it satisfying? Like, somebody might enjoy tofu, but they like to douse it with soy sauce, and then it's completely irrelevant. And a lot of unless you're just heavily focusing on legumes, which could be great, but also not necessarily highly satisfying for all meals. Relying on plant-based foods can really increase the sodium. I mean, a lot of the packaged products are really high in salt. I think I am going to sneeze. I'm going to mute. Okay, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think it's, again, going back to the bigger picture. Obviously, you don't know your patient. If you were talking to your patient and they were absolutely, very traditional. I'm thinking of one of my former chefs that I worked with for many years, who became a very good friend. He is now a dialysis patient. He had diabetes and had some kidney failure, and they put him on dialysis. If you said to him, all plant-based, yeah, that would not go over very well. So, you have to consider big picture. You have to consider your patient, but obviously because this is just a one day, I'll let you decide. There's never a concrete answer. A lot of times it depends. It depends on your patient, but it also depends on the source. I mean, obviously whole foods are better. So, a chicken breast, for example, maybe a marinated chicken breast that you marinate is going to be much healthier than like a processed chicken product because that's going to be high in sodium. It's going to be much better than a chicken, one of those fake chicken patties because that's overly processed and it's going to be high in sodium and perhaps high in saturated fat. So it's just it's a little bit of a nuance, give and take. And now you have 5 nutrients. Everyone was asking about nutrients a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, it's coming, and here it is, right? There's a lot of nutrients to think about with the CKD patient. So. All right. Any other questions before I move on to?
I'm checking real quick to see if it says in here, but is it just a moderate case of CKD or advanced stage? Do the numbers change for those?
They do, and this is advanced.
Oh, okay, I see it now. Thank you.
Okay, let me go to, I'm going to go to the discussion so I can just review that real quick. So the discussion this week is how disease affects nutrient intake. Identify what nutrients need to be controlled for in the management of a specific chronic disease. So, this says choose between type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or renal disease, and discuss how recipes and menus can be modified to meet dietary restrictions. Obviously, you guys are all doing renal disease. My preference is you try to choose either type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease, just to change it up. But the point here is you're talking about what you're doing, like what you're thinking about, not just the nutrients, but how are you managing, thinking about foods, thinking about, quality of life could come up, how you're going to approach meal planning for a specific chronic disease. So it's a little bit of like the processing and the thinking about the menu planning for the chronic disease. So a little bit of what you're doing prior to putting together that menu. Okay. All right, so I'll send the links for the chronometer. You guys have a link for Food Data Central. I sent the readings, and it's just the 2 of you guys. So anyone have any suggestions for next week's topic?
Yeah, I sent an email. I don't know if you read that or not, but it's very interesting to hear what you think about fasting, like intermittent fasting. I don't know if it's interesting topic.
I think that's a great topic. Awesome. We will do fasting.
And also we can add to that like keto diet, low carb. Yeah, because nowadays it's very popular and a lot of people do that and they have great results from that. Like let's say type 2 diabetes patients, they do keto and they say they don't need any more like insulin or any other drugs. Yeah. So that's interesting.
They sometimes go hand in hand. A lot of people that follow keto will also do some fasting. I'll cover fasting for sure, and I'll consider if I want to. Maybe we'll do something about just like diet trends and include keto, and we do that the next one because we did kind of talk about paleo, and we could talk about. I mean, plant-based is another trend. There's a lot of trends. Mediterranean, There's the no lupine. What is that guy's name? It's what is his name? It'll come to me in the next few minutes. But anyway, so I think that's a great next topic. And by the way,
There is Atkins, there is one more, like low carb, very similar. I cannot remember, but yeah, there are a lot of low carb diets too in there, and a lot of people like say that it's work. Actually, myself, I did the keto diet after my pregnancies, and it helped. It really helped me to lose all after pregnancy weight, and yeah, I felt good. I didn't have any side effects,
did you go off of it then?
No, now I am low carb, but not keto, because keto is 20 grams of carb a day max. And yeah, it's too much. If I go back to that, I will lose weight for sure. Yeah. But now I am like doing, let's say, 80 grams of carb a day, and it's 80 to 100, and I'm okay. And trying to be low carb, no sugar at all, and no flour. But I ate some fruits, berries mostly. Yeah, and non-starchy veggies. I eat a lot of that.
You can,
And protein is fish,
oh,
mostly.
good. So you can tell us a little bit more about it when I talk about it. Awesome. I think those are two great topics. Thank you. And maybe I'll put together a little survey and see what other fad diets or diet trends people want to cover.
Perfect.
Okay, so with that, I was gonna spend the next, looks like 26 minutes talking a little bit about my career. Oh, before I just wanted to say, sorry, you know what? I do see your email, Christina. I'm terrible. I'm going to say this to the group. I'm terrible at checking emails within Brightspace. I'm not used to it. And it doesn't come to, maybe I'll check again. Maybe it might be worth checking and seeing why. Do you know did your time on your Zoom, does it say, what time does it say?
6.
It says 6.
It says 6, but here it's 5 for
5.
me.
So it is Eastern. Yeah. So see, Jessica, it's very odd. So we were talking about the time zones. So anyway, I will check into email forwarding from Brightspace. So sorry I missed that. And then I'll look at time zones too.
Thank you.
Yeah, so moving on, I figured I would now spend, just a little bit of time talking through my career path, which is very non-traditional. I mean, I came at becoming a dietitian in a non-traditional way, though I've spent most of my career in foods. I guess early on, I didn't think that I would become a dietitian. I actually started my undergrad thinking I was going to become a chef. And I had been working in it with one of my mom's good friends, owned a catering business. She went to the Culinary Institute of America. I'm from New York, so that was like the place to go, and was registered and ready to go, and realized, you know what, I don't think this is the lifestyle I want. So I very quickly was able to shift and apply, and went to a state school in New York and figured I'd do food service management. I was very into food and wanted to continue in hospitality. But I took my first nutrition course, and it was just kind of an introductory nutrition course, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. It was so interesting to me to understand a little bit more about the science of food, but then also, connecting it to, wow, there's this connection with health. So I changed my major again, or changed my focus again, and started on the dietetic track, which, for a traditional student working on the bachelor's, they do a bachelor's in dietetics and then go and do the dietetic internship. By 2024, it will change. All dietitians will need a master's. It'll become a 5-year program. So it'll be required. It's not required yet. Excuse me. So I did the bachelor's in dietetics. And I will say I was always into food. Like I worked in food throughout my college career, and I graduated, and I was like, most people were signed up to go through the dietetic internship because that's what you do. And that's not what I didn't. I had no desire to go and work in a hospital. So I decided to, I went abroad for a while, and I got a couple of jobs here and there, and didn't really know and understand what I wanted to do. So my mom sent me an article that she found in a newspaper, and it was the American Personal Chef Association, and they had 1-week courses to become a personal set up your own business as a personal chef. And so I went and did a certification and set up a company. It's called Green Cuisine, and I was a personal chef. And it was interesting because I started this company, and I started it just making food for friends. Like, I'll make you food so that I could get testimonials, and I started promoting it that way, and started getting more and more clients. And as I started getting more and more clients, people kept asking me about nutrition and special diets. And at that point, it was like, if I had the forethought to think about packaging meals and becoming HelloFresh, I probably would be a millionaire now, but I didn't have that forethought. But that's what I was doing. And then at its height, I had 2 cooks working for me, and I would develop the menus. And at that point, then I was able to start doing all the nutritional analysis. And I was able to utilize my degree. And I started doing cooking classes. It was so much fun. I mean, it was like I was able to combine the 2 things that I love the most: cooking, food, and I was working with private clients. I had clients that were marathon runners that wanted to improve their training. I had a lot of special diet. No, I can't eat gluten, dairy, legumes. Back then, it wasn't as popular. There weren't very many foods, so they really didn't know how to cook. So I was able to sort of really tailor the menus for those clients. And then I had quite a few cancer patients as well that wanted to have healthy foods prepared for them. So as I started doing this more and more, and started realizing that this company was growing, I realized, I need to have some kind of license so that I can fall back on it when people ask me questions, especially about nutrition. So of course, at that point, it was 7 years later after I got my bachelor's degree, I applied for the dietetic internship and got accepted. I managed my business full time. I wasn't supposed to, but I wasn't going to close my business. I managed my business full time while I was in the DI. Luckily I had some good cooks working for me. And I went through that process, and it was so funny because in clinical rotation, I mean, I was like, oh yeah, this is why I don't want to do this. I mean, for me, it was very clear clinical was not my cup of tea. I mean, I passed out twice in 2 different hospitals. Um, Luckily, one of the nurses knew that I was going down. Um, so it's my whole path has been very food oriented, very food service oriented. I started doing some consulting. I picked up some cooking classes with Cornell University. They have a robust wellness program, and they wanted me to do some cooking classes. And out of that, once I become a registered dietitian, the person that hired me for the cooking classes, had me start doing one-on-one counseling. And so I was able to like get onto campus and introduce myself to the chefs because I love networking and talking food. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't have a dietitian. You guys don't have a dietitian? That's crazy. So, we just started chatting, and they actually hired me as a consultant just to start doing nutrition fact panels for some of their grab and go items, and which started as a 6-hour per week job, turned into like it grew into 10 hours a week, and then it grew into part-time. At that time, I was still managing my business. And once they offered me a full-time job, I had to decide, like, do I want to close the business, which I never really shut down, but I stopped cooking for people. I continued doing one-on-one counseling a little bit, but then eventually, once I got busy with Cornell, I closed that as well. At Cornell, I was able to establish a food allergy program. We at the time were recognized as one of the best food allergy programs in the country. So people started coming to Cornell because we managed food allergies really well. We opened the first gluten-free, tree nut-free, peanut-free dining hall in the country. And I was able to get into the kitchen and work with chefs again and teach cooks. I mean, we had a staff of about 400, a student staff of about 600, and I was the only dietitian. So it was a really, really fun position that I was able to sort of create this nutrition program and almost create a nutrition and health culture that hadn't existed. So like I worked really hard with the senior executive chef to change the salt. I think we were using Morton, and Diamond kosher salt actually has 30% less salt in the crystals, because the way they manufacture the salt, it's literally a diamond, and it's got 30% less salt, less sodium. So we were able to switch over to using diamond across campus, which saved a tremendous amount of salt. So it was really fun to be able to go from one-on-one counseling and cooking for 1 or 2 families at a time to all of a sudden, we served probably about 23,000 meals a day. And I had about sometimes 15 dietetic students working with me and for me. They were getting credits, they were getting paid. We were running nutrition programs in the dining halls. We were having fun. It was just this constantly bringing the awareness of nutrition to the student within the dining hall, so that they were constantly thinking about, like, oh, what am I eating? So we, moving when you first came in on primary dining hall, when you first came in, it was like all this beautiful big piles of desserts, cookies and brownies and pies and cakes and Rice Krispie treats. I mean, it was like gobs of desserts. And I was like, why do we have so much? I mean, it's just so much. Because we had a frozen yogurt machine, we had a soft serve machine, we had hard ice cream, I mean, it's just like, why do we have so much? So we, we created these menu standards. So all the dining halls had to follow certain standards. They could only have one cookie, one brownie. We literally created this full dessert. Like you cannot serve more than X number of desserts. I think it ended up being 4 desserts. We removed pies. If you're serving a cake, you don't need like a bar. I mean, it's just, we completely changed it. And we put the desserts in the back and brought fruit out front. So as soon as you walk in, you see fruit. And now it's very commonplace across campuses or across all you care to eat kind of situations where you see the healthy food first. You get the visual of really a high color and fruit or produce, because it gets people already thinking about, and there's research to back this up. It gets people already thinking about eating healthier, making better choices as soon as they walk in. So changes like that, we were able to substantiate them. I participated in quite a few scientific research projects. We started blending our burger. If anyone's had Christina's is totally keto. We blended our beef with mushrooms. It was about 70% ground beef and 30% ground mushrooms. So you're increasing the vitamin D, you're increasing the fiber, you're decreasing the saturated fat, decreasing the cholesterol. It actually increases the umami, so you can decrease the sodium without having an impact. And students didn't know they were like getting these healthier burgers. So we did all this research. So it was a really fun to be able to participate and build a program. When I left, we moved to Chicago. So I left at that point. I had working for me, I became the director of nutrition. I had working for me 2 chefs. I had somebody doing all the data in our food service database, because he was inputting all the recipes, so we could pump out all the nutrition facts, so we could put it on our app. We had completely set that up from the ground up. And then I had a team of, every semester it changed between 10 and 15 students working with me. And every time we get a new product, like a new cake or a new pie or a new cereal, the students would input that information into our database. So we always had it available on our app. So when you pull up the menu on the app, it gave you all the allergens, but it also gave you the nutrition facts. So the students would know right away what they were eating. Lots of fun. So when I ended at Cornell, I actually also started teaching. So I've been teaching for the last, I guess, 4 years. But the goal for me with food service was be able to make people that are working in food service, make them understand that it's not like it has to be, that nutrition can be integrated. It's not either or. In the old school nutrition or old school dietitians that I worked with, and that were, my mentors when I went through the dietitian, it was that way. It was like, it has to be this many milligrams of sodium, and that's it. And it's more about, especially in this setting, I mean, obviously university dining is different than if we're in a long-term care facility, but nonetheless, when it comes down to quality of life and serving somebody that's just completely null and void of flavor and color, they're not going to want to eat it. And then they're not going to be eating. And then, you've got other issues like, why isn't this person eating? Now we've got to start supplementing. And now we have to start worrying about this. Why are they eating? Give them flavor and color and make the meal fun and interesting. And, they're going to eat it. So, excuse me, out of that work, I mean, because I did so much work with nutrition fact panels and nutritional analysis, I do a lot of consulting. So, there's companies like Press Juicery or Momofuku, which is in a pretty major restaurant in New York. Xi'an Foods is another major restaurant. So I'll consult with them and analyze their recipes for them. So they pay me to do that work. I also do quite a bit with branding, like health branding, health claims, what they can say on the bottle. And I had just chatted with somebody. Interesting that Christina, I didn't know he was in Chicago. He's from Italy, but was in New York for a long time. But he just is launching a set of antibiotic-free salamis, which, you know, he called me, and I don't think, you know, that the goal doesn't necessarily always just go to nutrition. It's how, you know, how do I package this product? It's antibiotic-free. How do I put the information on this so it's appealing to the customer? So I work with a lot of companies thinking about that. I chatted with a company yesterday that is, they are launching a new, they're calling it mycoprotein. So they found this company is called Nature's Find, also based in Chicago. The founder found a microbe in the geyser at Yellowstone, and he fermented it and found that when they fermented it, they derived protein out of it. And so they are literally growing this protein as a plant-based substance, and it's very high. And they're growing this fungus, and it's very high in protein. And now they're making it into cream cheese. I tasted the cream cheese yesterday, making it into sausage patties. They're doing chocolate mousse, all plant-based. So very interesting. So they asked me, like, what, I mean, on the package, it was talking about better for you, better for the planet, but, you know, they had a lot like, 75% less fat, this much less sodium. That a lot of times what I have found is that people don't necessarily, they might think they want to eat healthy, but if they're buying sausage, they don't necessarily want 75% less fat. So I've done a lot of research about that. Like, health is oftentimes, unless your doctor is telling you that you need to eat this specific plant-based sausage, oftentimes people don't choose that way unless they're completely passionate about it like we are. So, you know, keeping that in mind has sort of educated me throughout my career. Like, people have come to me and said, "Oh yeah, I want to go on this diet," and then you start talking about food, and it's like, well, why would I eat that? Right? So it's just very interesting that you think that your client, that your consumer, that your patient has these intentions, but at the end of the day, you know, people want what they know. And so how do you build small changes into their diet, into their lifestyle? Oftentimes will have more impact. And that's what I found at Cornell. That's what I found in my consulting business. And that's what I'm finding now as well. So that is my my career in 25 minutes, 20 minutes actually. Questions, thoughts, comments? No?
That's really neat to hear, and very non-traditional. So thanks for taking the time to share. And it's interesting to see how the same things can translate through all those different venues, working one-on-one versus working with 26,000 meals. So it's really interesting to think
absolutely about. And it's, you know, as the class, as students in this class will, you know, start considering what to do and where to go, and I think it's you're going to be experiencing so many different rotations. For what really stands out, I mean, some people love clinical. I worked with a dietitian. I did a little bit of per diem clinical work, and she was a dietitian. She was the lead head dietitian at a very small hospital in Auburn, New York. And she was so funny. She's younger than me. She's like, my doctor told me I have high cholesterol. I was like, okay, like she should know what to do, right? I'm thinking to myself, and she's like, yeah, I don't know, what should I do? And I was like, do you eat breakfast? Like, because her diet was atrocious. So I started with breakfast, and she's like, well, no, I skip breakfast. And I'm like, okay, well, what about just adding fiber? Like, just have some raisin bran in the morning. Like, you need fiber, clearly, if your cholesterol's high. She's like, oh, yeah. And it struck me because I'm so food focused and I don't even think about the other things. But you guys will come across this. Like, there's TPN, there's total parenteral nutrition, the nutrition that comes in an IV that gets delivered through an IV. And you need it when your entire digestive system or some part of the digestive system is completely compromised. Pancreatitis is a great example. If somebody's in a very acute pancreatitis, they're taken off food immediately. And oftentimes by day 2, hopefully, they're put on parenteral nutrition. And I don't I had the hardest time calculating parenteral nutrition, or then there's tube feeding, which is putting it through a tube, usually gets delivered into your duodenum in your small intestine. I had the hardest time calculating because I was just so focused on food, but then there are dietitians that's what they do. They are great at reading labs, and they're great at doing the calculations and understanding the nuances of like the fat and what your pancreatite or what your pancreas enzymes are and how much fat you need to put in. So to your point, Jessica, it's very broad. This career is very broad. There's a lot of things that you can do. So thank you for listening, and thank you guys for joining. And again, I'll post this recording, but no one else has any questions. I'll stop the recording.